Good morning, my wild and beautiful friends. I'm so glad you're here. Today we're talking creamy, herby butternut squash soup. So delicious, so simple to make. Happens to also be my favorite winter soup. Keep on watching to see how we make it. So to get started, we're going to need, you guessed it, a butternut squash. I'm going to cut it in half. Be careful when you're cutting. These squash tend to be more dense than the other squash that I've cut before. So use a sharp knife. I kind of just go around all the edges and then get that stem, if I can, and crack it apart. There we go. And then I'm going to scoop out the seeds. You can absolutely save these little guys and roast them as well. They're super delicious. So I've got my oven preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and I've got a sheet pan here with some parchment paper just for easy cleanup. I'm going to take our squash and I'm going to drizzle it with olive oil, probably about 1.5 tablespoons each half. And then I'm going to sprinkle them pretty liberally with some salt and pepper, and we're going to pop them in the oven. Depending on your oven and the size of your squash, it takes about 40 minutes for them to get nice and tender and roasty. So while these beauties are roasting away, we're going to get started on the base of our soup. In a large pot, I have got about 1 tablespoon of olive oil going, and I just dumped in 1 large yellow onion that I've diced. Once they get a little bit translucent, I'm adding 2 smashed cloves of garlic. And then after about a minute or so, I'm going to add in our spices. I've got salt, pepper, garlic powder, roasted red pepper flakes. I'll, of course, link below the amounts. And I'm just going to stir this together, get it all incorporated, and then we shall add some vegetable base. I love this better than bouillon, but you can, of course, use the box kind if you make it good on you. I'm using 2 tablespoons here. Dump them in and stir it around, and then we'll kind of deglaze our pan with 4 cups of water. Now this next ingredient is quite arguably what makes it taste as good as it does. I've got a big giant sprig of thyme. It's going to make everything nice and herby and rustic tasting. I've also got a can of coconut milk that was in my fridge. So it's a little chunky. I will spare you from watching me try to dump it. I'm going to add 2 cans of coconut milk. And don't worry, this is going to melt in so easily. And then I'm just going to pop a lid on this and keep it simmering until we're ready to add our squash. Alrighty, our squash is looking good. It's nice and bubbly with that olive oil, roasty. I swear roasting your vegetables for any kind of soup is a way to go. It gives it just so much more depth of flavor. So if you were a smart person, which I most of the time am not, you'd wait for these to cool down to the touch before you add them to a blender. But I am incredibly impatient, if you didn't know that about me already. So I'm going to very carefully, with a tea towel and a spoon, scoop out the flesh of our butternut squash and get it into our high-speed blender. Okay, we're looking good, guys. We've got squash in our blender. We've got our gorgeous coconutty, herby vegetable broth. We're going to remove our thyme here. We don't want to blend that in. You can, of course, add the squash to your pot, remove the thyme, and use an immersion blender. That might be the easiest way to do it, but I am not cool enough to have one of those yet. One day I sure will. So I'm going to add the broth to the blender with the squash, and we're going to blend it on low, slowly moving up to high speed until it's nice and velvety and creamy. Oh, how I wish you could smell my kitchen right now. There's something about that thyme that's just so aromatic, and the roasty smell of that squash. Ooh, I cannot wait. So I'm just pouring this right back into the pot. I didn't wash it or anything. I'm going to let it simmer with the thyme. I'm just adding some back in. You can also add some more fresh if you want to up the herbiness. And then my secret ingredient, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. I feel like this rounds everything out. It gives it a little bit of umami flavor and it almost makes it even just a little bit more hearty. So I'm going to stir that in. At this point, definitely do some taste testing and adjust salt and pepper and red pepper flakes to your desiredness. And there you have it. Roasty, creamy, herby, delicious butternut. And I hope you get to enjoy making it this winter. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you are all staying safe and healthy, and I can't wait to talk to you soon. Cheers.